You smile, nod, and say yes, while inside you're dying a little. What if the nice thing that you're doing for your marriage is quietly killing it?
Welcome to another episode of Master Your Marriage. If you're new here, welcome. We appreciate you being here. We drop a new episode each week, so make sure to subscribe to the show. And if you find some value from today's episode, would you kindly consider leaving us a 5-star review and a comment?
So over the past several weeks, we've been exploring common, very common, but losing strategies that couples often fall into as their differences between them become more and more obvious.
Oh, yeah.
And our goal with this series is to help you to recognize these patterns in yourself so that you can do something better, because we believe that when you know better, you strive to do better.
Well, we've already covered the first 4 losing strategies, so they will, just to review, needing to be right, controlling your partner, unbridled self-expression, and retaliation. Today, we're moving on to the 5th losing strategy, which we're going to call appeasement, also known as people-pleasing, complying, accommodating, or even a new term to me, masking your mind. You might ask, why is this really that big of a deal? It doesn't seem, this appeasement thing doesn't seem to be as bad as the other strategies. It doesn't seem to be like this overt thing. Well, that's because appeasement is a surefire way to make sure your relationship is chock full of resentment. Unchecked resentments are the death knell for most relationships. And when resentment creeps in, goodwill, empathy, just leave the chat. 2 things that are very crucial in a loving relationship.
So now here's what I love about self-awareness, though. If you will look at your resentments, they are going to provide you with so much useful data, so much information. In fact, your resentments can be flipped around into a roadmap for what you must do in order to move back into harmony in your relationship, which we're going to share with you later in the episode. But most of the time, resentment is really just this telltale sign that something about how you are living isn't truly honest, or it's not being chosen freely by you. So resentment comes from often masking yourself. Robert just introduced that idea. So what does that term even mean? Well, masking your mind is hiding what you really think, what you really feel, or what you actually want in order to keep people around you more comfortable.
So lots of people pleasing.
And keeping the peace.
I'm going to give you a couple of ideas, such as you notice you disagree or hurt, so you don't say it, or maybe you water it down.
Right. It also looks like agreeing outwardly with someone, but not really agreeing with them inwardly. So that could be nodding along in sort of a conversation you're having with your spouse. Yeah. And you're nodding when internally you're actually thinking to yourself,
Not even
I
close.
don't actually believe this at all. And it also could look like you're just laughing off comments that maybe your spouse is saying, but internally they really bother you.
Something that cuts deep that you just sort of
You just laugh
let
along.
go. Appeasement also looks like protecting other people from discomfort at the cost of your own honesty. So you might think, you know what, just don't rock the boat. Don't make them uncomfortable. Don't let them see that I'm not on the same page. Be a team player.
While inside you are maybe thinking at that same time, if I say what I really think, they're going to be upset with me. They might be disappointed in me, or they might judge me. So you know what? It's just safer to just keep that to myself.
I think that's the right term. Safer. Yeah,
Well,
safer.
All of these losing strategies on some level are things that we feel compelled to do out of safety, when in reality, that actually doesn't bring us more safety.
So there are many names for this kind of masking your mind, this people pleasing, complying, accommodating, fawning. The gist is that you're masking your own mind, and you've convinced yourself that what you're doing is virtuous because you're keeping the peace.
I have a story about this just from a couple weeks ago. So we were traveling, and we kind of talked about this from at another angle a couple weeks ago, but we flew home, of course, with very little sleep, and something happened in the airport where I felt hurt. And I didn't say anything and I kind of wanted to keep the peace. I wanted to get home. We were already flying in at midnight. And the next day came around and then I was like, do I really want to talk about this? Do I really want to share with him about my hurt? But as the day went on, I started to notice myself pulling away from him. You felt me pulling away from you. You felt that disconnect, that energy shift. But then I started really analyzing, I don't know if I really want to talk about this. Maybe it's just easier to not bring up this issue and to just brush it under the rug. Well, just brush it under the rug. Everything will be fine. But he kept kind of asking me like, hey, what's going on here? It's something you want to talk about. And I just kept thinking, no, I don't know. I don't want to talk about this. So I think maybe 48 hours went by. And I finally said, I noticed so much resentment in myself that I knew it was on me if I was going to hold on to that resentment to be the one to talk to you about it. So we were laying in bed one night and I said, I want to talk to you about something. Is that okay? Is this a good time to talk about it? And he's like, are you going to finally tell me what was wrong? And,
But
and I'm like,
I
yes,
remember. Yeah.
I want to tell you. And so I compassionately and carefully and methodically, shared what was wrong and we repaired it right away. But the point of sharing this story is that that resentment that I carried around for 48 hours was something that was on me to bring up. It was on me to deal with.
I noticed something was off and I was like, just tell me. I'm sure I did something wrong. What was it?
Right.
But
Right.
yeah.
And it ended up being not that big of a deal. So we talked about it. The whole conversation was less than 10 minutes and we repaired and that was it. And that was that. But it's just so interesting how our resentments are these indicator lights, like on your dashboard. They're telling you something is not, what's the right word?
I think it's just something that doesn't follow your compass or it just something that bothered you. And on the topic of people pleasing, you've decided to just push it away, even though it doesn't square with your values.
Right. And so
Is that right?
it's an incongruency, right? I
Yes.
feel incongruent inside because I'm letting something go that I know isn't right.
Yeah. And sometimes we'll ask the question, like, where does this drive to people please come from? Like, where is it? And oddly enough, as I share this next piece, you'll probably understand it. Dr. Lawrence Kohlberg taught that one of the early stages in human development is this good girl, good boy stage. And as kids, we learn that I am good when adults or authority figures are pleased with me. And I'm also bad or I'm naughty when they're upset with me.
Right.
And so that's where this comes from.
And so by being good, we're trying to prove that we are worthy of them, our people, which in turn will earn us a sense of belonging to that group that we are born into. So for most people, that's their family or their parents. And so when we are good, we gain belonging. And so to try to belong, we do things like we follow the rules. We are polite. We are obedient. We are quote unquote nice, and we do what we need to do in order to fit in with our family or our church or our school or the culture that we grew up in order to be considered good. So what we're doing is we're really borrowing from our group's sense of right or wrong instead of forming our own sense of right or wrong. And that's okay because we're children. This is perfectly normal and it's actually healthy when we are a child. It's how we learn language like kindness, like honesty, like reverence. It's how we learn basic behavioral rules like, hey, it's not nice to hit people, or we should always tell the truth.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it though, just from what you talked about, thinking about when you were a small child or even when you have kids, other adults would say like, "Oh, he's such a good boy."
Mm-hmm.
And we're striving to do that, yet we're growing up.
And we're earning our worth, we're earning our belonging, and that is okay. That is
Yeah.
normal if
Yeah.
we are 10 or 5 or 12, but
But the challenge is when we never really grow beyond this good girl, good boy stage. When we get married or get in a long-term committed relationship, our group becomes our spouse and we continue to comply as a way to earn love. And as a child, it was totally normal to think compliance equals love and approval. That's how we learn to belong. But as an adult who continues to believe that love and approval come from being compliant will never truly be knowable, then I want you to think about that. And this in turn will limit their ability to have rich intimacy because they're not showing their full self.
so to sort sort of kind of bring all of this together that Robert and I have just been talking about, we learn as children that being good comes from complying with others. But if we never move beyond that, then as adults, we're going to stay stuck in people pleasing and complying instead of becoming deeply honest and authentic. And that is very costly to us individually. It's costly to the relationship. And developing psychologically is recognizing that we can do what we truly believe is right, even when it does upset other people.
Yeah, it might make other people feel uncomfortable.
That's part of psychologically growing up.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about why this appeasement is so costly in relationships. Even though people pleasing looks kind and it seems virtuous to most people, the truth is that it quietly damages both you, and I want to emphasize that, and the relationship. Let's walk through 6 ways that this appeasement can be harmful in your relationship.
Okay. When you're appeasing, you're not actually being honest, right? You often say yes when you mean no. You agree outwardly while disagreeing inwardly and usually resentfully. And you pretend that you're fine when you're actually hurt or tired or unhappy. So, what does that cost the relationship?
I mean, it almost costs, just in that example that you shared, your partner's actually in a relationship with your mask, not your real self. And this is costly because in order to have real intimacy, there needs to be real truth.
hmm And the second reason why people pleasing is so harmful is that you trade a short term comfort for a long term bigger problem. So here's the thing, people pleasing is all about pushing away your own anxiety or discomfort in the moment. So let me give you an example. I was working with a couple just last week. I was teaching them how to express their needs. One of them was very much a people pleaser. And so after teaching him more about how to express his needs, I said, so how did that feel? How did that feel to express your needs? This is after decades of being married. And he said, he was really timid and he said it felt very precarious.
I love that answer.
And,
That's because if you're not used to expressing your needs, finally saying it's going to be challenging.
and I'm like, well, how is that? How so? And I said, did you feel exposed? Yes. I said, did you feel vulnerable? Yes. And those things are true. That is the discomfort. That's the comfort that you have to leave behind if you're going to have a more honest, choice based marriage. So when you trade temporary comfort, what you're really doing is you're pushing these fears away. Those fears like, I don't want them to be upset with me. I don't want them to reject me. I don't know what they're going to think about these needs that I have. I don't want conflict with this person. What if they don't say yes? What if they don't like me? What if they reject me? All of these things are rolling through our head, and that is discomfort we have to deal with.
Yeah. And so instead of being honest, you're avoiding hard conversations. You go along with decisions that you never really wanted to support and don't actually support. And you're trading this short-term temporary relief for long-term relationship problems. The
Mhm.
unspoken issues pile up. The pattern gets more deeply embedded where one person's needs dominate the other and the other person quietly disappears.
Yep.
Problems and resentments actually end up getting bigger because they're never fully addressed honestly.
Yep. So the third reason people pleasing is so harmful is that you end up making yourself the victim of your own choices. So
I love that term.
let me explain. This is where our resentments really start to ramp up because what happens is we resent the other person for the choices that we are making. And that actually shifts responsibility and the blame to the other person. So let me give you an example of someone. Let's say my mother-in-law has a monthly Sunday dinner and I'm expected to go every month, go to this Sunday dinner,
Family
but
dinner. Yep.
maybe I don't like to go. Maybe I hate going. Maybe I feel like every time I go, I am judged. She talks down to me. I don't want to be there. And so I go, but I go anyway. I still go because I don't want her mad at me. I don't want to speak up. I don't want to share how I'm feeling about the situation. But in turn, I still make it all her fault. I go because I have to go, but it's still all her fault.
Yeah. And if you slow that story down just a bit, it probably goes something like this in your head. I have to go. They're making me do this. I don't really have a choice.
Mm.
But in reality, you are choosing. You're choosing to go to the event. You're choosing to say yes. And you're choosing to not set a boundary, whatever boundary that is that you feel is being stepped on.
Hmm. And because you don't own that choice, you don't own that choice that you are making, you end up blaming the other person for your discomfort because in your head, you're saying, well, if they weren't so demanding, I would be fine. If they weren't X, then I would be fine.
Yeah.
So I'm making them responsible for how I feel. And therefore, you then feel used. You feel taken for granted. You feel invisible. And that is the resentment. But it all stems from placing yourself as a victim who has no choices when that really isn't true.
Yeah, absolutely not. Another way people pleasing is harmful is that it teaches other people a false map of you and a false sense of your true boundaries. When you always say yes and you always accommodate the other person, they learn, well, she's fine with this. He doesn't mind. They're just so easygoing.
So when you finally do say no, or you finally do ask for something different, or you finally do maybe express your frustration with something, it feels shocking or unfair to the other person because they organize the relationship around the fact that you were just so easygoing. And then they start to grapple with things like, well, wait a minute. What's going on here? You've always done it this way and it's always been fine. So what's the problem now? Why are you suddenly being so difficult? And this can create conflict. It feels like it came out of nowhere when in reality, it was building the whole time.
Yeah, I wonder what that was like in our relationship because I was a people pleaser for a really long time. How did you feel when I started, I don't want to say asserting myself, but at least
I was just thinking
describing my
about this.
boundaries?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that too. And I was just remembering it's a story we've shared many times here on the podcast. So if you are a weekly listener, you've heard it before, but it fits in here. So I'm going to bring it up again. There was this time early in our relationship where I was doing a lot of retaliation. I was doing a lot of unbridled expression. I was doing a lot of criticism. And again, I'm organizing our relationship around the fact that Robert says yes. And so I start to get more entitled and more
Yeah,
entitled and more
absolutely.
entitled because, hey, he says, yes, I can get whatever I want. This is great. And so one day he speaks up and he says, not in a defensive tone, actually in a very calm tone, he said, Sharla, and he was really just self defining, saying, you can't treat me like this. This is not okay. And for me, it was a shock. It was a jolt. It was like, wait a minute, what is going on here? This has been fine all along. So why do I need to change? Right. But because of the way he delivered it, it took me some time, but with a lot of self analysis and awareness, we did work through that. But when you do get into that pattern of just expecting the other person to continue to accommodate, you do get more entitled, and it can be really shocking when the other person finally puts their foot down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's really interesting is that even though I was expecting you to say yes and do what you were told, the funny thing is, I think I lose respect for you the more you do it. And that's the thing that I don't want to really say out loud, obviously, when I'm doing it, but secretly, I'm also losing respect for you and you're losing respect for yourself.
Yeah.
And I don't think that in a relationship, anybody can be happy, truly happy, if they can't respect themselves.
Yeah. And that's important. Okay. So why does people pleasing create so much resentment in relationships? In short, you're not owning your choices or voicing your concerns. And the truth is that you've never clearly shown your real self. You've always just been saying yes. You've never shown your limits or your desires because people pleasing your spouse sort of felt safer than honesty. And it could be safer than honesty in my part because sometimes honesty led to a disagreement. So how do we start to move out of compliance and into something where we're being more honest with each other in our relationships? How do we get to that point?
Right. And it's tricky because getting out of that need or that feeling that you have to comply is more of a developmental process, not just some off and on switch.
Yeah.
And so this is not something that's going to be super easy. And it's something that's going to take time and honesty and a lot of self-awareness and a lot of discomfort. Often when people try to make that switch from people pleasing to something more honest and more chosen, it can look like growth, but it actually isn't real growth, not real development, not real psychological
No, it's
development.
pseudo growth, right? One day you wake up and decide to stop being a people pleaser. So instead you go to the extreme opposite of the scale and become totally anti-compliant and rebellious, such as like, I'm not going to do anything you want me to do. You can ask, but forget it.
Mm-hmm. Or you might become totally focused on just yourself and becoming hyper independent. And this is where you might use distance or an I don't need you anymore type of a posture as your new armor.
Yeah. Or reacting with a different losing strategy instead, like maybe contempt or control or unbridled expression or retaliation. All of these are a complete shift and will leave your partner just wondering what the heck happened.
And they're not really growth. They're not true growth. They're a different strategy, but they're not actually psychologically developing. They're all reactive responses. They're not mature responses.
Okay, let's talk about some tangible ways we can actually grow responsibly in your relationship. Step one, shift mindset from good equals compliant, like I'm a good girl, good boy. That means I'm compliant, to good equals truthful and responsible. Not just truthful, but truthful and responsible for your own words.
Meaning,
Yes.
okay, I'm going to be responsible with my words. Then I'm also not going to flip the switch over to retaliation or some other losing
Losing
strategy.
strategy.
And so to get there, you might ask yourself a few questions. You might ask yourself, so am I doing what I'm doing, whatever this is, because I truly believe it's right? Or am I doing it because I'm scared of disapproval, of conflict, or of losing belonging? So step number 3,
Clarify what you actually think and want. For chronic people pleasers, this is often the hardest part. You need to start to self-define who you are and how you will want to be in these situations.
so here's some questions that might help you to untangle what it is that you actually want. You might ask yourself, am I making this decision so that they will feel better, so that I can feel better? Are you making this decision because it's what I really want? Because it's what really serves the relationship best? You might also ask, what would my best self, the version I honestly respect, do in this situation? And what do I believe is the most right thing that I can do here?
Sometimes you may not even know because your sense of self has been so wrapped up and so compressed in other people's validation for so long. So this may be a first.
Yeah, and that's okay. That's okay if you're not really sure yet what you want. Just identifying the fact that something feels off is a great start.
All right. Step 4, practice tolerating other people's discomfort and invalidation. I know it's going to be hard. To move out of compliance and into more authenticity will likely involve upsetting other people. They're not going to be happy that you've changed.
Well, like back to that example we shared earlier of you saying, hey, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. Did you think I was going to be like, yippee, finally, Robert? Like, or did you think I was going to say, what the heck?
No, I didn't think it would sit well with you.
So when we start to define ourselves, we will need to tolerate that other people might not like this, whatever this is that you're asking for. They may think that you're wrong or that you're selfish, but it's okay because I still believe that this is the most right thing. This is the best thing for our relationship. This is the best thing. So you're going to become more honest when you're willing to feel that discomfort in your body and not immediately have to do something about it to fix it or to give in.
People are going to be upset when their doormat goes away.
Mm.
They can no longer step on you.
Mm-hmm.
It will be challenging for them. Step 5, self-reveal instead of masking your mind. Owning yourself sounds like, I see this just a little bit differently. And I'm not really at peace or okay with this decision. I care about you in this relationship. And because of that, I need to be honest with you about where I'm at and how I'm feeling.
Or just what you said, I'm not okay with you treating me with this way.
Or I'm not okay with you treating that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you've been listening to the show for a while, we love to give homework. So here's some journaling questions for you. And let's start with this one. When was the last time that I went along with something resentfully just to keep the peace, and really think about what does that cost the relationship?
Number two, make a list of all the resentments that I hold towards my partner. How many of those stem from avoiding a conversation about your own needs or desires? Like I had the other night when I went to Robert and said, I have something I need to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Number three,
When have I knowingly looked the other way, aware that my partner was accommodating my desires at the expense of their own?
oof,
Oof,
that's a tough one to look at.
that would be tough.
I definitely did not want to look at that when I knew I was getting everything I wanted out of you.
Yeah.
Number four, what would it have looked like if we were more honest with each other about our individual desires?
Hmm. Number 5, what is one small change that I can make today after listening to this episode?
So these are some really introspective questions that require some thought and a lot of self
A
honesty.
lot.
So get out your journal and see where these questions lead you. If it feels safe, you might consider discussing one or two of these questions together as a couple, because this can be a powerful way to move forward with more honesty in your marriage.
All right. One last thought before we close out this episode, because I think it's a question that some people will have. Is it wrong to sacrifice for your spouse? And I would say absolutely not. Sacrifice is part of being married. But when someone makes a sacrifice, we always want them to do it because of the love and joy they get from compassionately giving. The difference between genuine sacrifice and people pleasing is that there's no keeping score, and the sacrifice doesn't hurt the relationship, whereas people pleasing does hurt the relationship. When sacrifice is chosen freely with love, it actually deepens the connection rather than breeding hidden resentment.
Well, I think that's a wrap for this episode. Make sure to subscribe to the show if you haven't yet, because next week we'll be sharing the next destructive pattern that commonly plagues relationships. Thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful for all of you, and we kindly ask, if you haven't yet, please leave a comment and a 5-star review. It really helps us to make a greater impact and to help more couples. And if you know someone who this episode might help, please consider sharing it with them.
As always, be kind to each other this week. Take care of each other. Remember, it's the small things done often that make the biggest impact.
Until next time.